Despite having one of the best rookie seasons in franchise history, I think Quinyon Mitchell is heading into year two extremely underrated. I'll tell you why coming up next right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast.
You are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We thank you so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. Welcome in, Eagles fans, to this Wednesday edition of the show. I'm your host, Louis DiBiase. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 back in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Eagles OTAs continuing this week. And yesterday, a big topic of the show was Cooper DeJean's long-term role. Vic Fangio, during his press conference the other day, kind of hinted at some new ideas for Coop. Obviously, we know 90 to 95% of the time when they're playing nickel packages on defense, which is the majority of the time, Cooper DeJean is going to be your inside nickel cornerback. But when they're in quote-unquote base defense, we've seen him playing boundary corner this offseason. Fangio discussed the other day the idea of using him at times as a pseudo, safety hybrid type of defensive back. Cooper DeJean has been a big talk of this defense for months now because of the versatility, the long-term question marks about where he fits best in the future. Is he a long-term nickel cornerback? Is he the boundary corner opposite Quinyon Mitchell? Is he potentially a safety long-term if Andrew Makuba doesn't work out and Sidney Brown doesn't work out? When you also add on top of the fact that, he was kind of the missing piece after the bye on defense, he put this team over the top, turned them into the number one ranked defense in football. It wasn't all because of Coop, but that move from Avonte Maddox to Cooper DeJean was a huge reason that defense was able to turn things around after the bye week. He made the play of the Super Bowl with the pick six. He's part of the exciting whites, the exciting Mikes, him and Reed Blankenship. He's got the brand. I think Cooper DeJean is almost a reason that we're not talking nearly enough about Quinyon Mitchell heading into year two. I think Quinyon Mitchell is almost becoming underrated because of Cooper DeJean, right? And also, I just think Quinyon Mitchell is a soft-spoken personality. Not on the field. He talks a lot of trash. Not at the parade when he's 20 blue lights in. Bud Lights in, I should say. Blue Light, more of a Canadian beer for us up north in New York. But I think when you add a lot of this into the equation and you also consider the fact that they were both Rookie of the Year finalists last year. When you talk about Quinyon Mitchell or Cooper DeJean, it's Q and Coop. They are kind of grouped together because they were drafted together. They were back-to-back picks in the first two rounds of last year's draft. And so when you're discussing the Eagles' cornerback dominance, when you're discussing the future, it's kind of both of them clumped together. So all of this combined, I feel like despite Quinyon Mitchell having one of the best rookie seasons an Eagle has ever had, he was a Rookie of the Year finalist, and I think he was the favorite for the majority of the year before Jared Verse really turned it on. Despite all of that, I think he is underrated heading into year two, heading into 2025. When you look at who Quinyon Mitchell was last year, as a rookie, listen to the numbers that other star receivers had when going up against Quinyon. Drake London, 1 catch for 5 yards. Chris Olave, 2 catches for 23 yards. Mike Evans, 2 catches for 19 yards. Amari Cooper, 1 catch for 10. Malik Neighbors, 1 catch for 9 yards. Jamar Chase, 2 receptions for 19 yards. CeeDee Lamb, 1 catch for 5. Terry McLaurin, that Thursday night game, 0 catches against Quinyon Mitchell. Those are all pro, veteran, star receivers that, as a rookie out of Toledo, Quinyon Mitchell totally erased. He had 2 interceptions in the playoffs. He had the 10th lowest completion percentage allowed in the league when targeted. And yet, I feel like we're talking about Cooper DeJean more than Quinyon Mitchell. And I think the conversation has to go more towards number 27. Coop, I think, is going to be one of the best versatile inside-outside defensive backs in football. He's going to be in that same conversation with, Brian Branch and Kyle Hamilton, those Swiss Army knives that we were accustomed to seeing Malcolm Jenkins be in this defense. But Quinyon Mitchell, I think, is already in the conversation, I think, with a even bigger year two if he boosts up his box score stats like interceptions this year, takes advantage of those 12 pass deflections he had last year, turns more of them this year into interceptions like he started to do in the playoffs, an interception against Green Bay in the wild card round, an interception against Washington in the NFC Championship. If he starts to do that more this year, I think he will be in the top 10, top 5 conversation for best outside cornerbacks in football. And to me, that's a bigger role. Cooper DeJean is extremely important to this defense. You got to have elite nickel defensive backs in football now, considering so many weapons play on the inside now. You need that versatility because you play nickel a lot of the time, even in base packages. So these guys need to stop the run. I'm not trying to lessen DeJean's importance, talking about Quinyon, but I almost feel like Mitchell's importance to this defense has been lessened or overlooked because of the talk around DeJean. And with Darius Slay leaving this year, Quinyon Mitchell is even more important to this defense. Like, he is the guy now to take on an offense's best wide receiver. And again, I think he was that player last year, but because you had Darius Slay as well in the secondary, Quinyon didn't have nearly the responsibility that he's going to have in year 2. Like, he is the alpha of this group. And I think he belongs in the conversation already with Derek Stingley and Devin Witherspoon, Sauce Gardner, Patrick Surtain Jr., McDuffie, Trent McDuffie in Kansas City. Like, I think he's already on that level. And I think in year 2, he's only going to get better. And yet he's not being talked about enough as like somebody that could propel themselves from a really good rookie corner, a really good rookie in general, to a star in the NFL. Like, I think there's going to come a point next year, halfway through the year at the end of the season where you're like, yeah, Quinyon Mitchell, not only is he a top 10 corner, but he's a top 5 corner, maybe top 3, and there's an argument to be made that he could be the best cornerback in football. Like, that's how good I think Q is. I think he showed that last year. If he starts to get interceptions in the regular season like he was getting in the playoffs last year, I think he will be in that conversation. But again, because of so much talk about DeJean's role, and because DeJean has some signature moments and signature plays like the pick 6 in the Super Bowl, because he was kind of that missing piece last year, we talk about him more. He has his own podcast now, and Quinyon's kind of just been like quietly just going about his business. And I also think because he didn't get the loud big-time plays last year, the big-time interceptions, the pick 6s, because he was just shadowing and erasing receivers, and there's not a lot of highlights to go behind Quinyon's rookie year. The stats don't look that impressive unless you find the advanced statistics. I think a lot of this combined is making him underrated heading into year 2. But Quinyon Mitchell had one of the best rookie seasons I've seen in franchise history. He had one of the best rookie seasons a cornerback has ever had. And when you don't hear from a corner, that's really good news. Like, the best thing to say about a corner is that you did not notice him in that football game. That means he did his job, and that was Quinyon Mitchell a majority of the time in 2024. There were only a couple times last year that I could truly say, oh, Q got beat on that one. Like, that was his fault. And it's so hard to play cornerback in the modern day NFL, especially for a rookie coming out of the MAC. And the fact that he was that good, like, we should be talking about Quinyon Mitchell propelling himself into that best corner in the league status in year 2, because I think that's the guy he's going to be. And I just don't think we're talking about that enough. I think Quinyon is very underrated heading into 2025, and I think he deserves more recognition, and I think the breakout is coming. I think the interceptions are going to come. I think he's going to be an even better tackler this year, a man coverage corner in zone. He's a do-it-all player. He's versatile in his own right. People forget last summer he was playing slot corner the majority of the time. If they use Cooper DeJean at safety, maybe you use Q inside. I think he is so important to this defense. He's one of those 3 main pillars of this defense. Like, it's Jalen Carter on the defensive line, it's Zach Bond in the middle linebacker, and it's Quinyon Mitchell in the secondary. And without Darius Slay this year, I think he's going to have to be more of a vocal leader. Even though he's not the rah-rah kind of guy, I think he's going to have to be a leader in that locker room. He's the go-to guy at corner. He's going to have to, in man coverage, take on, I think, the best receivers of an offense. He's the guy. And I think he's underrated right now based on the way we're just not really talking about him a whole lot. All right, guys, coming up next right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast, the Philadelphia Eagles are projected to have, most likely, 13 draft picks in 2026. I feel like it's inevitable that Howie Roseman moves some of those picks in trades for a player that can help them repeat for a championship this year, or maybe next year gets them a proven player, because you can't use all 13 of those picks on prospects. So what could Howie Roseman be cooking up? We'll get into that coming up next right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast. Today's episode of the Locked On Eagles podcast is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in full swing. The finals start tomorrow. Thunder, Pacers, two of the best young teams in basketball that play fast. Elite defense, can shoot threes out of the building. It's going to be a great finals. Every night will deliver highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and to win big. I think I'm going to go Thunder moneyline game one, though, in Oklahoma City. The vibes are going to be immaculate. I think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander hits his over on points 4. I'll probably parlay that. I might do a 2 to 3 leg parlay for the Thunder. I'm expecting big things from OKC in this finals. And you can do the same. New to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 back in bonus bets. So make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, so it's crazy considering how good the Eagles are. Winning a Super Bowl this year, their roster is set up very well, maybe better than any team in football, for both the short term and the long term. And yet, they have 13 more draft picks projected to come their way in 2026. Now that Bryce Huff was traded we finally know the details, by the way. It's a 5th-round pick conditionally that could become a 4th-round pick this year. I'm not sure what the conditions are, if it's based on snaps or sack total, but the pick could become a 4th in 2026. So now we know they have at least 10 draft picks guaranteed. They also have expected 3 compensatory picks coming from Milton Williams leaving in free agency, Josh Sweat leaving, and Mekhi Becton. So if you add those picks to the Eagles' arsenal, next year they have their own 1st-round pick, their own 2nd-rounder, 3 3rd-rounders, their own 3rd-round pick, the Jets' 3rd-round pick from the Hassan Reddick trade, and a projected 3rd-round comp pick from Milton Williams signing with the Patriots. Then you have your own 4th-round selection. You have an expected 4th-round comp pick coming from Josh Sweat leaving in free agency. You have that 49ers pick that's either a 4th or a 5th in the Bryce Huff trade. You have your own 5th. You have the Texans' 5th, the Falcons' 5th, a 5th-round pick from Mekhi Becton leaving for a comp pick, and a 7th. You have 13 projected draft picks next year. That's with the most complete roster in football, short-term and long-term. That's with a 10-pick draft you just had in 2025. So after all of that, now you have 5 projected picks in the first 3 rounds next year, potentially 8 picks in the first 4 rounds. Like, that's unbelievable. And yeah, it's a good problem to have. Considering the Eagles have such an expensive roster, you're going to need these inexpensive role players that you get through the draft to help you sustain this window. So you're going to want to use a lot of those draft picks. But like I said, the Eagles have a complete young roster. They just drafted 10 players in 2025. There is no chance that Howie Roseman is drafting 13 prospects in 2026. He might use half of those picks. So I feel like it's inevitable that they're going to trade some of them, even if it's just for a rental player that can help you win a championship this year, maybe next year. So with that being said, considering a trade is likely to be inevitable, what do they do? Like, if they're going to make a trade this summer, what positions would they gun for? I will say there's 3 positions they're most likely to make a move at some point, through July or August. I think they're going to let training camp play out, see what they have in some of these young players on both sides of the ball. But if they make a trade, gun to my head, what's it for? I think the main thing it would be for is a defensive lineman, either defensive tackle or an edge rusher. If Azeez Ojulari is not getting it done, Joshua Uche doesn't look like a reliable part of the rotation, Moro Ojoma's not stepping up in this potential year 3 breakout, I think you could totally see them trade for a pass rusher. If not, let's say Tyler Steen just doesn't look the part at right guard, and Kenyon Green looks like the bust that he was becoming in Houston. I could see them trading for a right guard. Outside of that, like maybe a tight end. Dallas Goedert's back, but there's only 1 year left on his contract. Maybe you target a tight end for the future. And so this year, you have a respectable 12 personnel package, and maybe you want to upgrade from Grant Calcaterra this season. So those are the 3-4 positions I'd say they're most likely to make a trade. Edge rusher, defensive tackle, so the defensive line in general, right guard, or tight end. When it comes to players they could bring in, at tight end, potentially Kyle Pitts is on the trade block, and he's going to be a free agent next year. I don't know if the Eagles would extend him, but he is younger than Dallas Goedert. You could have a package next year with Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert, and Kyle Pitts in 12 personnel with Saquon Barkley in the backfield. That's interesting to me. Chicago, they just drafted Colson Loveland. Is Cole Kmet available? Noah Fant from the Seattle Seahawks. Maybe he's available after Seattle drafted Elijah Arroyo in the 2nd round out of Miami. Maybe the Steelers, who have Freiermuth locked up, they're interested in Jonnu Smith. Arthur Smith wants to get him back from the Miami Dolphins. Maybe a Darnell Washington is available. If you want just a tower of a 6'7" tight end for the red zone, he's an interesting option. Like, there's a lot of tight ends out there. If they go defensive line, could you convince one of these unhappy pass rushers to play for a Super Bowl, even if they don't get a new contract? Like, I don't think there's any way the Eagles pay Trey Hendrickson, but could they say, hey, you're not getting that deal this year. Come play for Philly. Come compete for a championship. Like, maybe. Odafe Owe. I think Baltimore likely wants to pay Owe, but if they don't, like the Eagles offer them a 2nd or a 3rd and 4th round pick, Owe is in his prime, and I think he is a very good pass rusher on the edge. Those are interesting options. Or, like, let's say a team like the New Orleans Saints, who are going to be projected to be one of the worst teams in football this year, they want to unload some of their veteran talent. What about a Cam Jordan? Like, the Saints, I think, are going to bottom out this year. Cam Jordan could be a good, proven veteran presence in that edge room. And Cam Jordan right now says he doesn't want out of New Orleans, but what if they're 1-5, 1-6? You don't think he's going to want out? I think that's a possibility. The Falcons, I just thought about this today. The Falcons drafted both Jalen Walker and James Pierce in the 1st round. 2 first-round edge rushers. Arnold Ebiketie, who I loved coming out of Penn State a few years ago, has had back-to-back 6-sack seasons. Ebiketie in that rotation, I think, would be an upgrade over both Azeez Ojulari and Joshua Uche. So there are some edge rushers out there as well. And then if you want to go pass catcher that's not tight end, I mentioned this on the show about a month ago, maybe you call up Green Bay. They drafted Matthew Golden in the 1st round. They have Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks. They've got like 4 other average, solid number 3 or 4 receivers on top of having Golden. That's like 5 players that they're not going to be able to play all these players. A lot of these guys' contracts expire in a year or two. Maybe if you want someone else to rotate in with Jahan Dotson as that 3rd receiver, or you don't believe in Johnny Wilson and Arnias Smith as that 4th guy, maybe you call up Green Bay and get one of those pass catchers. I don't know. Regardless, the Eagles are not using all 13 draft picks next year. So I would predict, whether it's in training camp, after seeing what this roster looks like, right before the regular season, maybe it's before the trade deadline, I do think it's inevitable that they bring in a player. Maybe it is for the long term. Maybe they do trade, for an Odafe Owe, and then they give him an extension long term. But maybe not. Maybe they do bring in a rental player like a Kyle Pitts or a Cam Jordan type of player. Like, I could totally see that as well, because again, you have a complete roster long term. You just made 10 draft picks. You really think you're going to use 13 selections this year? Like, I don't want to trade all of them, because again, the Eagles do need inexpensive rookie contract talent to help extend this winning window right now because of how expensive your offense is, how expensive eventually your defense is going to become when These guys I'm talking about, Quinyon Mitchell needs a new deal. Cooper DeJean needs a new deal. Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith need new deals. You need to have a lot of draft picks to bring in inexpensive talent. But 13 draft picks is crazy. Again, they're projected to have a first, a second, 3 thirds. I mean, they're projected to have maybe 8 picks in the first 4 rounds. Like, that's unbelievable. They are absolutely going to make a trade. And I will say, if they stay patient and they don't make a move this year, but they want to time it right at the end of 2025. Maybe more stars will be available next offseason. I think they could be in for a massive trade next year. If they collect these picks, maybe a guy like Jeffrey Simmons in Tennessee wants out. There were trade rumors circling around Simmons in January. If the Titans don't progress this year, even if Cam Ward looks like he's becoming the guy, maybe somebody that's a veteran that wants to win now, like a Jeffrey Simmons next year, becomes available. I don't know. Whether, again, it's this year or next year, the Eagles are going to make a big trade. There is a trade coming that's going to involve draft picks. They just have too many assets to not use them. They can't use them all on prospects. So that's my prediction. It's probably going to be on the defensive line. I could also see tight end. I could also see the offensive line as well. All right, guys, we'll wrap up this Wednesday edition of Locked On Eagles. Coming up next, I saw a really interesting question on Twitter the other day. If you had the chance to reverse the Eagles' Super Bowl outcomes of the 5 Super Bowls they've been in, would you take the reverse outcomes of what we've gotten? We'll get into that coming up next right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast. All right, guys, we're wrapping up this Wednesday edition of Locked On Eagles, and I saw a really interesting question I wanted to get into on the show today that was on Twitter the other day. So a fan posed this question to Eagles fans. If you had the potential power to reverse the Eagles' Super Bowl outcomes of all 5 big games they've been in, so 1980, 2004, 2017, 2022, 2024. If you could reverse the outcome, so you win the 3 Super Bowls that you lost and you lose the 2 Super Bowls that you won, would you take it? So instead of having the 2017 ring in 2024, you get 1980, 2004, 2022. Would you do it? I personally would not do it, and let me explain why. I know that you would have 3 rings in this reverse scenario. I know you would still have rings by beating Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes, the 2 GOATs of the NFL. But I personally think the way they won their first 2 rings, it's just too perfect to give up. It's just too perfect. The 2017 Cinderella story, having a backup quarterback outduel Tom Brady, who threw for 500 yards in that game, in a Super Bowl shootout, with Brandon Graham, of all people, getting the strip sack to win that game. That's how you win your first championship as an underdog. That's the most Philadelphia Super Bowl that you'll ever see. And then to see the 2024 Eagles get revenge on the Chiefs to stop a three-peat, the first potential three-peat in NFL history. Nobody's ever gotten that close. Kansas City was 1 win away from history, from maybe becoming I think, you have to confirm at that point, the Eagles stopped the Chiefs from becoming the best team in NFL history, the best dynasty in NFL history. They dismantled them 40-6 before they pulled their starters. And doing it the way they did, the opposite way that the NFL says you're supposed to, by having a running back and Saquon Barkley lead the way. That is so perfect for Philadelphia. Those 2 championships are exactly what you would think Philadelphia goes through to get titles. So, I know that you would get 3 rings and you beat Brady and Mahomes still, but I am not giving up that 2017 story or that 2024 story. I think not winning in 2022 is part of what makes 2024 so special, because again, it's that same core that we got to follow through that heartbreak and then the collapse of 2023. All those trials and tribulations made this year so much more enjoyable. 2017, that first ring, watching them go through what they did that year with all the injuries and all the doubt across the league, that's what made that year so special. So I wouldn't give that up. And it is also a selfish motivation. I was 21 when they won Super Bowl 52. I'm 27 now when they won Super Bowl 59. I wouldn't have seen the Eagles' first ring. And the second one I would have only been 7 for. So it's also selfish. I was kind of the perfect age for the Eagles' first 2 championships. And I wouldn't have wanted their first ring, selfishly, to be 27 years before I was alive. Like, no thanks. I'll take the 2 rings they got. And some might disagree because a lot of older Eagles fans will say, well, it would have been awesome to see those other Eagles cores, Eagles legends from other eras get a ring they never got. And I get that. Like, wanting Brian Dawkins to have a ring, Donovan McNabb, Ron Jaworski, Dick Vermeil, Andy Reid. I totally understand that. Harold Carmichael and Wilbert Montgomery. I understand that perspective. And I get the attachment that, fans that grew up with those teams would have to those teams. I just, again, it's selfish, and I'm admitting it. I just don't have that connection with those Eagles teams like I do with 2017 and 2024. But I also will say, although it's 3 rings versus 2, these 2 rings are kind of a part of the same era, the Howie Roseman era. And so there's also dynasty talk around this team that you don't have with a team that won in 3 completely different eras. So I also think, like, when you won the rings within a decade of each other with some of the same players in the same front office, the GM, the mastermind behind these 2 constructions of title winners, I think that's part of the importance of these 2 rings. It's part of the enjoyment. And so, although it's 3 rings versus 2, I think these 2 rings mean more than 3 rings spread across like 3 or 4 decades of Eagles football. Because again, these 2 rings are within a decade, and it's putting you into this like historic dynastic status potentially if you can get one more. And to beat, again, the 2 GOATs within a decade with 2 different quarterbacks and 2 different head coaches is some of the most unique stuff in the history of football. So again, I'm not giving that up for 3 rings. Let me know what you think. Hit us up on X at DBLCLOE or at Locked On Birds or our YouTube community page as well. That'll do it for today's edition of Locked On Eagles. Thanks so much for making us your first listen each and every day. We'll see you tomorrow. Until then, thanks so much for downloading, watching, and listening, and let's go Birds. Fly, Eagles, fly.